Alrighty, lords and ladies, you know who I am, ETTemplar, Supreme Misfit Professional Dipshit. And we're going to be reading some notes from the Nick Rekieta footage. Supposedly, the footage being destroyed was a part of the plea deal. And there's still ongoing legal stuff going on with Moon and Candy, Ohio County. But we're going to be reading this. So it's a purific victory for Nick Rekieta, and there's quite some revealing stuff in here, and it's as what everyone assumed how bad it was. So without further ado, let's get to reading, shall we? Audio note. There are sound issues throughout the footage. The volume was originally set to 100% and was so loud and distorted that most of the early dialogue was incomprehensible. It sounded like the speakers were blown. Even after running it down to 8%, there were still problems hearing due to the background noise, a barking dog, overlapping voices, radio chatter, and Pomplin's movement. Some of the dialogue is paraphrased to the best of my ability. Because most badge cams suck and the mics aren't the highest quality. Camera note. The video is from Officer Pomplin's body cam. He moves around a lot, rarely stays in one place for long, so the footage can be jumpy and hard to follow. That, combined with the noise and clutter, that adds to the chaos. 9:15 to 9:33, early entry and early drug discovery. 9:15 a.m. The video begins with officers ramming the front door as they enter. The first thing you see is a scared child. The house is extremely filthy. The floors are completely covered in clothes and junk in some areas. There's no walkway at all. You actually have to walk on stuff to move through the space. Countertops are stacked with random items and liquor bottles everywhere. The filth and hoarding are immediate and overwhelming. The mess you see in Nick's kitchen when he shows it on stream is nothing compared to the rest of the house. That one space is clearly staged. It's obvious that he cleans the visible area, especially for streaming. I mean, we all knew it, right? And that's funny. Nick Rekieta denied, but everyone was tuned in once someone goes down the path of being acting like a crackhead. So the Rekieta household was quite literally a fucking trap house. 9:16 a.m. Kyle and April are being brought out of the house and led outside. A dog can be heard barking in the background. 9:17 a.m. Officers call to a child who's downstairs. The kids are being removed from the house while the search begins. One of the officers goes downstairs to retrieve the youngest child. She comes up holding the officer's hand. She speaks to him, but the audio was unclear due to the background noise, so I couldn't make out what she said. As they head toward the door, she pulls to pick up the cat so she can take her outside with her. The search continues. A nitrous tank is visible inside the house. 9:21 a.m. So remember when Nick Rekieta had Hackamania? He showed up at Hackamania with Mapton and all these other fools to dunk an Aaron Imholt like it was some kind of big thing. That fails in comparison to what we're reading here. So we're already hearing heartbreaking shit that Nick Rekieta is a terrible human being. And it turns out that the pastor and those damn Scandinavian prudes as church were right and called it. So Nick can be heard outside yelling, "Get out of my house!" He says something about a probable cause and search warrant. He sounds indignant. 9:22 a.m. Officer Pomplin walks out to his squad car to get gloves. Yeah, I would put on some gloves too there, Chief. Good choice. 9:23 a.m. As he returns, the camera catches all the kids sitting around outside with Kayla. They are huddled against the house. The scene is heartbreaking. 9:24 a.m. Kayla is taken back inside and searched. 9:25 a.m. Officer Pomplin enters the bedroom where other officers are photographing drugs and paraphernalia found on top of a red mini fridge. The fridge is being used as a nightstand. The one that was shown in Hackamania. 9:28 a.m. They begin photographing evidence inside Nick's streaming room. The room is far smaller than expected, and the condition is much worse than anything seen on stream. There are bottles of alcohol everywhere. The entire place is buried under hoarder junk, electronics, collectibles, and random gear. His 5 monitor setup and other equipment are visible, but everything around is chaotic. The curated background people see in streams is a total facade. They go through a bag full of brown glass bottles, each one wrapped in tissues. At 9:33 a.m., an officer enters and informs them that cocaine was found in the bedroom where Kayla and April came out of earlier. 9:33 to 10:01, briefing, confrontation, and arrests. 9:33 a.m., some of the officers meet up in the entryway and brief each other on the situation. One mentions that Nick is trying to ask them the questions instead of answering theirs. Another officer says they need to get statements, figure out who lives in the house, and call family services. The audio is unclear due to background noise, so the dialogue here is paraphrased to the best of my ability. Officer Pomplin goes back into the master bedroom where officers are still going through the red fridge being used as a nightstand. He then heads outside to talk to Nick for the first time, at least from what is visible on this camera angle. Pomplin tells Nick, "We want to ask you some questions. A quick interview. We want to get an idea of the layout of the house where the nanny is at, and who else stays there." Nick immediately pushes back and asks, "What's your probable cause?" Pomplin replies, "You have the search warrant." Nick stands there with his arms crossed. He's calm, but he looks like shit. He says, "Cool, you have no probable cause." Pomplin asks, "Are you willing to talk with me?" Nick responds, "Sure," then immediately adds, "You still have no probable cause." Pomplin says, "I'm not discussing that. You've been giving the search warrant. You know how this works." Nick Rekieta says something about probable cause. 9:38 a.m. Nick reads his Miranda rights. They begin questioning him about the children and other adults in the home. Pomplin confirms Kayla is his wife and then asks about the other women. Nick gives April's name and says she's a friend. He says she does not reside there. Pomplin tells him, "She came out of your bedroom." Nick replies, "Okay, so she came out of my bedroom." Pomplin says, "When I have people over, they don't go in my bedroom." Nick snaps, "I don't give a shit what you do." Pomplin stays calm and says, "I'm just asking questions." Nick tells him, "You're not. You're making statements." Pomplin asks, "Where do you stay inside the residence?" Nick says, "All over. It's my house." Pomplin asks, "Do you stay in the master bedroom?" Nick says, "When I'm there, I stay in there, sure." Pomplin asks, "Is that where you sleep at night?" Nick says, "Yes." Pomplin responds, "That's all I need to know." He then asks, Do you want to tell me where the things are in the house to help expedite the search?" Nick says, "Where? What things are?" Pomplin replies, "You saw the warrant. We're looking for controlled substances." Nick says, "I'm not admitting to anything. That's ridiculous. You still have no probable cause." Pomplin says, "We're going to be searching the house. We're going to be contacting family services." Nick says, "Why?" The house is mired in filth. They've already seen nitrous canisters and a bullet of cocaine, I think, when they entered the fucking house. And Nick says, "Why?" Either Nick is dumber than we think, or he's literally in denying, trying to cover his own ass. And this is where kids are. And from what we've heard earlier, there's bottles, glass bottles everywhere. Anyways, Pomplin says, "Because we've already found cocaine in the house." Nick just stares at him. Pomplin says, "We're not here on a whim." Nick says, "Yes, you are." Pomplin says, "No, we're not." Nick replies, "Yes." Pomplin tells him, "We came here looking for controlled substances. We were only in the house about 10 minutes and we already found some." Nick responds, "I don't know anything about it." The acts of a guilty person. Isn't this funny? There's shit all over the place. The house is in distress. They found drugs within 10 minutes. There's cocaine. Later on, when we read this, we're going to hear about MDMA. We're going to hear about ketamine and all sorts of other stuff. So at this point, Nick's house is a trap house. Nick says something about family services and mentions the grandparents. So that's probably him saying, oh, well, they can stay at their grandparents while we figured this out. Pomplin tells him that's most likely what will happen, but family services has to be involved. We'll put them with a family member if we can. 9:42 a.m. Nick and April are both handcuffed in the driveway, facing each other. It's almost cinematic. April is looking at him with a pouty face and puppy dog eyes. She's wearing black cutoff shorts and a black long sleeve crop top. As Nick is being walked to his squad car, he tells the officer, I hope you catch gonorrhea and die. For what, doing his job? Doing his job protecting children and, like, investigating your fucking disgusting trap house? Before putting him in the vehicle, they stop to photograph the sores on his arms. He has a lot of them. Sores. Nick asks, are you going to arrest my wife too? Pomplin tells him, yes, but we're going to have her stay here and stay with the kids until family services and the grandparents get here. Nick is visibly seething. Pomplin says, I'll come and talk to you when we're done and at the jail. The audio was unclear due to background noise, so I couldn't make out Nick's response. Probably just Nick still seething. Pomplin then walks away from Nick and goes over to April and introduces himself, explains what's going to happen, tells her she's going to jail, and asks if she has any questions whether she's been Mirandized. April says, no, but I want to ask. Pomplin interrupts and confirms she has been read her Miranda rights. She has. He begins asking her questions. Pomplin, how long have you been here? April, not that long, maybe a month. I'm trying to find my own place. Pomplin, so you've been living here? April, yes, I stay in the sunroom a lot. I've known the family for quite a while. Pomplin, you came out of the bedroom with Kayla, right? Yes. You were hanging out in there? Yes. Pomplin, what were you doing in there? April, Kayla was sleeping and I was changing clothes. Pomplin tells her they're executing a narcotics search warrant. April shakes her head no. Pomplin tells her they're executing. Oh, okay. So, as if she's confused in disbelief or pretending not to understand. There's cocaine, ketamine, bottles everywhere. Again, the absolute picture here is your just standard, typical trap house with shit everywhere, drugs, and she's acting confused. Why not just come out and say, yeah, this is a trap house. We've been doing tons of drugs around kids. Like, why even at this point? So this comes out. Now you know why Nick, Rekieta, and Mafton were hitting Aaron so hard. They were hoping that they would be able to own Aaron Imholt so bad that it would overshadow this. But there's no way. Aaron may be a cuckolding degenerate, but we don't hear anything about a trap house and drugs just being out in the open for kids to find, do we? So again, this is just this is unreal. Another officer asks, change your clothes in there? Yes. He follows up, you keep your stuff in there? Yes. At that point, another officer walks up holding two pairs of shoes. He puts one pair down on the ground. April looks at them and says, those aren't mine. Officer apologizes and says, sorry, there's a lot of shit. April looks at the other pair and still says, those are mine. He places them on the ground. There's slip-on sandals with straps. April tries to put them on while handcuffed as they continue to ask her questions. They ask where she sleeps when she's staying at the house. April says, sometimes I stay in the sunroom. There's a couch in there. Sometimes it's uncomfortable. Sometimes I sleep next to Kayla on the bed. She interrupts to ask for help putting on her sandals. The officer bends down and helps her get them on her feet. When he finishes, the audio becomes harder to understand. The audio was unclear due to background noise, so the dialogue paraphrased to the best of my ability. When an officer says something about the controlled substance search warrant adds up. I'll let you think about that. April shakes her head with a no again, clearly overwhelmed and confused. Overwhelmed and confused. They tell her she's being charged with 5th degree felony controlled substance offense. April reacts, "Oh my God." Officer says, "We'll go on from here. Any questions for me?" April responds, "No, I wouldn't know what to ask. Like I said, this is scary." You're there partaking in the like crazy shit? What do you mean it's scary? He tells her, "We'll meet up later and try to make it more clear for you." Then places her in the squad car. 9:47 to 10:24. Kayla refuses to speak. Evidence logging. First safe opened. 9:47 a.m. A female cop holding a big gun says Kayla refuses to speak without her attorney present. Kayla and the kids are still sitting out on the ground against the house behind the cop. Kayla is sitting with her head on her oldest son's shoulder. Well, that's sad. And there's rumors, too, allegedly, that there was domestic violence against Kayla and his older son. So Nick Rekieta is if that's true, well, I mean, he's an abusive piece of shit from what we're reading here, clearly. It's a heartbreaking scene. And Officer Pomplin is walking away. I hear the female cop say, "I'm going to try to get her some clothes." I'm unclear as to what she was referring to. As Officer Pomplin walks through the disgusting house, you can hear him let out a huge sigh as he looks at everything. He puts on some gloves. As he's going into the bedroom, he asks, "Are we still going through things here?" I had time in understanding all the audio as the dog barking loudly in the background. Okay, so 9:48 a.m. The officer goes back to his car to get something. He drinks some Mountain Dew and gets some snuff. On the way back, he passes Kayla and the kids again. He has interactions with another cop that I didn't quite understand. Someone says something about the house being huge. 9:49 a.m. He heads back to his car again, looking for something. Couldn't see what it was. On his way back, one of the other cops is talking to the kids, obviously trying to make them feel comfortable. After he gets inside, again, audio is hard to understand between background noises, radio chatter, and the dog barking. The dog is in the bathroom with a baby gate up. You can hear a conversation about drugs and firearms and finding .22 casings. Officer Pomplin starts writing down a list of the evidence he's found. Number 1. So this is where we get more into evidence of Nick's house being a trap house. Snort tube found on the nightstand and fridge. Test positive for cocaine. There are 4 cops searching the room. Officer Pomplin heads back to the squad car to retrieve evidence bags. Kayla's not sitting with the kids this time when he passes. 9:54 a.m. Officer Pomplin starts logging evidence again. Number 2, a glass vial tested positive for cocaine from the nightstand. Number 3, 2 credit cards with April's name on them. So that's stuff we heard before. All of this evidence is from the top of the cuck fridge nightstand, which is covered in a bunch of miscellaneous junk like a Celsius can, a couple of candles, spray bottle of something, maybe lube, nasty, and an unframed picture of Nick and Kayla laying on top of the other junk. One of the officers picks up a pill bottle and says, this is paraphrased from memory, I wasn't able to hear what he said verbatim, something like, "I found one of the kids' prescriptions right next to the cocaine. It has the name Celeste on it." The cops are mistaken. Celeste is Nick's mom. Is she giving him drugs or did he steal them? They look at the 2 casino player cards with Nick and Kayla's name on them with pictures of them. He turns to the other cops to see what they have found at 9:56 a.m. A cop pulls the paper bag out of the armoire and starts taking pictures of stuff on it. It sounds like he said something about a meth pipe, and when the other cop asked if they're used, he said, "This one looks dirty, unless if it's a brown glass." 9:57 a.m. You can hear the cops saying something about two spent .22 shell casings on the floor. One of the other cops finds pipes and bongs. They think they're used. The dog's still barking incessantly. Officer Pomplin says, "We've got to do something about that dog." So we're going to take a stop here. Just for a second, we'll keep reading. But I believe the .22 casings, I don't think they were being fired in some kind of weird kink sex shit. I think what they were doing is they were removing the bullets and they were mixing the gunpowder with the cocaine. Colloquial, like in Africa, it's called bron. I guess the cocaine and the black powder has a more serious reaction, a more serious high, apparently. So that's the theory why there's two spent shell casings. They don't mention that the primer on the back is depressed or the bullet casing that they've been fired. So we can presume that those two shell casings were used in some form of weird shit. Officer Pomplin documents his reports. The big gun was found under the bed. When they say big, it's probably just a like 223 AR-15 or something like that. 10 a.m. Pomplin continues processing and logging the evidence. He's still in the bedroom where the red fridge and nightstand is. There's movement and chatter as officers go through items. It's a mix of searching, bagging, and documenting. The audio is difficult to make out clearly because of overlapping voices, barking, and background noise. One of the officers says they found edibles. Another holds up what looks like a grinder, says it contains a white powder. They say they are going to test it. 10:01 a.m. You can hear a child back in the house. 10:02 to 10:24. Second safe drugs inside family services update. 10:02 a.m. He is documenting more evidence of a metal container, two glass ones with powder. So it's true. The story where they were saying where Aaron Imholt said he was carrying around a little lockbox of drugs. So that's 100%. That wasn't Aaron Imholt being funny or creating a lie. That was 100% true. So no wonder why Nick, Rekieta, and Melton had to do that Hackamania, because that was all to try to be a smokescreen from all this, what we were about to discover that came out. So Nick, the badge cam footage might not be put out, but this is from witness statement of someone who witnessed the badge cam footage, because I think for 3 days they were people were allowed to view it. So a female cop comes in asking and talking something about jail for Kayla. One of the officers finds something under the bed. Officer Pomplin asks, "What's that?" Sounds like the other officer is saying something about Supreme Court, unclear word, license. I couldn't make out the word. 10:04 a.m. He asks the other cops, "Did you see Nick's arms? Track marks all up and down." He says, be cognizant of the possibility of finding needles, and says they could be sores. Paraphrase, couldn't hear well. They mention they passed Nick in his car on the way to the house. 10:05 a.m. Another cop comes in and says they're interviewing the mom right now. Pomplin says, "We're going to be a while." They discuss they want to search the house thoroughly, master bedroom, 2 studios, and the inner and outer vault studio area. He calls the studio Nick's lair. They discuss what cops will be doing, what and what search. 10:06 a.m. Officer Pomplin says, "We need to do our due diligence for the kids. Doing all we can." They're waiting for 2 kids and the dog to be picked up. They are splitting the cops up, 3 upstairs and others in the downstairs area. 10:07 a.m. They discuss April's purse, ID, etc. They left because there was cash in it. Officer Pomplin leaves 3 cops searching the bedroom, and he starts walking towards the front door. He says something about a lot of stuff being in the studio. You can see Kayla with what appears to be 2 family service workers at the front door. 10:08 a.m. Officer Pomplin goes downstairs. It looks like the family room, the fireplace, some arcade games, a drum set, and other kid stuff. The section in the outside area leads to Nick's studio. As he continues to Nick's studio, he passes through a small library-type room with lots of books and random things on the bookshelves. 10:09 a.m. When he gets into the streaming room, someone mentions files and something about homemade whiskey. Officer Pomplin opens a Ziploc bag, pulls out a small box that looks like a picture of food on it. It looks like something you'd get in a frozen food section. Then he pulls out different files. One has a brown substance in it, and the other has brine written on it. He says another one looks like whole pepper in it, and comment that it's weird. He pulls out a bag of seeds. Again, they say something about it being for homemade whiskey or something. 10:11 a.m. So this is where we'll stop here at part 1 and start part 2 after this. So if you found this interesting, me reading it, hopefully it's decent enough. Leave a like, comment your thoughts down below, and wow, it was much worse than we imagined. But it's pretty much what we expected at this point. And this too shows to me all this bullshit about the maid. That she was fired way before any of this happened because the house is so in a state of disrepair, right? Shit all over the place. If he still had a maid, the house would still be being cleaned. So Nick Rekieta kind of trying to dump this off on the maid, right? Or the nanny or whatever is complete and utter bullshit. That's him doing what guilty people do, is blaming other people except themselves. And so this, judging from what we heard about the house so far, the nanny or maid, she must have been fired long before, because if you do have a maid or nanny hired, it wouldn't get to this point. So anyways, see you. Alrighty, everyone, it's part 2. So grab some snacks as we discover the true horror of the Nick Rekieta trap house. And I do believe it's going to get worse. So, again, grab your snacks, grab a drink. Let's go. 10:11 a.m. Officer Pomplin starts going through a pile of papers. He looks at a handwritten letter. I took notes on it because it was weird and confusing. It was about a father and daughter, and said things like, a dad admits selfishness and crisis, a dad getting all this shit but no praise, and the daughter practicing her songs for dad. After Googling, I found out it's about some South Korean horror film called Train to Busan. Weird shit, just documenting to be thorough. The next piece of paper is a letter from the County Department of Environmental Services. It's something about a building or shed or something. The next thing is a signed anime pic that looks exactly like this. Next is an autographed picture of Eric Roland. It's signed, here's to looking at you, Nikki. It has a lipstick print on it, like a smooch, and says, P.S. Look here, with the arrow pointing to the bottom area of his shirt. I tried to do an AI version. This is the best I could do. I couldn't get exactly right, especially P.S. the arrow. Next is a piece of unopened certified mail to Kayla, writing on the envelope. He then finds a cardboard box with question marks drawn on it in a marker. He opens it, and inside there is a ton of shredded paper. He rummages through it and finds something that he thinks might have been a big room. He asks the other cop, and the other cop says no. So they're doing mushrooms on top of everything? Officer Pomplin smells it and puts it back. That's risky, dude. If it wasn't visible on camera for very long. 10, 12, 46 a.m. Another cop comes in. He has a safe he has found under the bathroom sink in the master bedroom. It's a briefcase type safe that's locked, but it has a part of a baggie hanging out of it. So that's the bag of cocaine hanging out of it. They were able to test the part that was sticking out was tested positive for cocaine. The other officer leaves to go and look and ask for the key. He gets a quick phone call and then asks Kayla for the key. She is with 2 family service workers. He tells her, we need the key or we're going to break it open. She says she doesn't know where it is. I don't know where it is. 10, 14, 41 a.m. They go outside. The kids are still sitting on the ground. That's got to be traumatic. These kids are going to be fucking ruined because of this. The cop walks behind the vehicles and break open the safe with what looks like a pry bar and a mallet. The safe is full of drugs, paraphernalia, and baggies. So again, Aaron M. Holt was telling the truth. That wasn't some BS story like Nick Rekieta was saying, oh, you had to turn a safe full of drugs, what? And lo and behold, Aaron, regardless of who he is, he's telling the truth. And they take a photo and say, let's get it to a better location. On their way back to the house, another officer mentions that the grandparents are on their way. They take a small safe to a small bathroom and place it on the toilet and open it. There's a big baggie that says KKK on the outside. They surmise it's ketamine. There's also a digital scale, snort tubes, a metal piece that looks like a crack pipe, and other metal item that looks like a spoon with a handle. So, crack cocaine and or heroin. This was a trap house. So these four degenerates were all doing heavy forms of drugs. Again, around cat. Anyways, it's he asks the other cop and says, "This is insane." His glove rips and he needs a new one. He says he thinks one is ketamine and the bites are either Molly or LSD. They start documenting the evidence. There's a baggie that was sticking out of the safe, which tested positive for cocaine. There are also some cards and rolled up dollar bill. They find a large corner cut with white powder. There are Ziploc bags containing smaller bags. One of them says KKK written on it. Another Ziploc bag contains small bags with powder. They found a digital scale. So the fact that Nick Rekieta isn't charged for distribution here is pretty interesting, because if you have a bigger bag with smaller bags of like powder in it, so Nick Rekieta's got lucky that he didn't get that was inside his house and not inside a car or anywhere else, because he could have been tried for distribution or conspiracy to distribute. Maybe, I don't know. I'm no lawyer. I'm just saying could have. A metal pen or counter, 2 snort tubes, 2 cutters. 10:24 to 10:48 studio search. Gun safe. Kayla's return. 10:24 a.m. Officer Pomplin goes back into the studio. A cop tells him that they didn't search the stuff that's covered in dust since it obviously hasn't been touched recently. So there's so much evidence everywhere that they're having trouble deciding what to look at, and just the stuff that's moved recently. So this implies that the house was in additional uncleanliness because there's dust everywhere. Take that with what you will. One of them says, there's a lot of weird stuff down here, like a bunch of pencil shavings. Alban says, this is his hangout. I hear what the other cop says, but Pomplin responds, because you can't do it with your girlfriend and wife. I guess I don't know. 10:05 a.m. He's searching through the artwork that's leaning against the wall, including the cat painting. You can see a close-up of a lot of stuff that's usually behind Nick when he's not streaming. They find a container box of something that looks like cornstarch inside. That's the weird. Is that drug-related too? I don't know. He starts going through Nick's collectibles, opening boxes and looking inside. He says, there aren't other safes. Family service worker asks about collecting electronics for the kids and says they're going to grandma's. That's sad. 10:32 a.m. Officer Pomplin goes into a room where there are lots of clothing racks and clothes hanging up. Kayla in there with family and service workers gathering clothes for the kids. The officer asks about getting electronics for them. 10:33 a.m. Officer Pomplin goes to the garage. He finds where there's another safe and gets the equipment to break it open. 10:35. They open it. Inside there are guns and ammo. No big surprise. Takes pictures of all the guns. The rest of the contents. One of the cops starts looking around at all the boxes and totes of stuff. He asks how long they've been living there. Officer Pomplin says a while. The other cop says it looks like they have half unpacked boxes from moving or something. Pomplin says it might be April's stuff. She said she's only been there a month. 10:37 a.m. Someone walks through with the dog on the leash. 10:38 a.m. An officer comes in and says there's another safe in the master bedroom closet. Officer Pomplin asks him to bring out into the garage. They bring out, break it open. Inside, so what is this? The second safe? Second or third safe we have full of drugs? Inside are Ziploc baggies, a rolled up $100 bill with white powder, rolling papers, and a lot of THC cartridges, a scooper, and a small funnel. So, scooper obviously for scooping up cocaine out of a bag to snort it. They're not sure what some of it is. They suspect it's fentanyl. Even fentanyl, expecting. So they don't know, but now we have fentanyl in the house with children. That if that gets out, you're fucking dead, or your kid's dead if your kid comes across that. They take pictures of it all. They leave the THC cartridges and don't open them into evidence, and don't put them into evidence. They say they'll test everything else at the station. Officer Pomplin starts documenting the evidence in his report: drugs, paraphernalia, guns, and ammo. He lists them all out, including serial numbers of the guns. They discuss needing to do a basic sweep of the kids' rooms and other bathrooms. 10:47 a.m. Kayla's mom arrives to pick up the kids and the dog. Again, you see the kids during this interaction. 10:48 a.m. Kayla walks in shortly after, looking strung out. She's wearing a backless shirt, and you can see all her back tattoos. 10 a.m., 10:48 a.m., and final sweep, personal reflections. 10:48 a.m. They come across a box with April's name on it. They open it and inspect the contents. They start going through kitchen cabinets, focusing especially on the one with all the pills and medicines. That could be for just general family use, but then again, at this point, we've already came across, two safes? 2 little lock boxes of drug paraphernalia. 10:51 a.m. They think they found needles, but realize they're just syringes without needles, the kind used for administering liquid medications, probably for the dog or animals. They do a final quick sweep of the rest of the house. 10:55 a.m. Officer Pomplin goes back into the master bedroom, walk-in closet. An officer who debriefs him on what they found in previous evidence, like a bullet and the other safe. The other cop comes in the back of the closet looking at a shelf, saying there's all kinds of THC vapes and adult stuff. Dildos. Can't see it from Palm's point of view, but it's clear that these items are out in the open. It's easily accessible to anyone who walks in, including kids. So, Mr. Nick Rekieta, trad man himself, with lube, dildos, and drugs all over his fucking house. They announce that everyone else is gone. They start collecting their stuff. 10:58 a.m. One of them brings up an incident where Nick Rekieta threw the warrant on the ground. By 11 a.m., they all leave. Additional personal observations. The house has a very weird layout. The location. I think the rest of this we don't need to know the inside of the house. And remember, kids, Afton and Nick Rekieta sweepers are gonna sweep this under the rug and say, oh, it's and do the typical libertarian bullshit argument where inside their house, so it's their right to do snort, suck, blow, and fuck all they want. But there's children present, and they're not gonna like anyone reading about this. They're not gonna like anyone giving their own moral opinions about it. And I think I've said this once, and I've said this before. A lot of people don't care what Nick Rekieta does, what sick, degenerate shit he does with Kayla and April or Aaron Imholt. And at the end of the day, they were so lazy. They were so coked up and drugged out of their mind. They couldn't even take their rompus of mass amounts of drugs to an Airbnb or a hotel, or couldn't rent out another place to have this sordid affair of shit. They didn't care enough about their children just to have this shit laying out everywhere. At least they had the wherewithal to have some of the drugs in 2 separate lock boxes. But then again, they had pipes and other stuff just laying around. So it's for Nick Rekieta, this is a purific victory. Yes, the video footage might not be put out, but what we just read is pretty damning. And there's again, that's why I still believe that they had Hackamania, was to run a smoke screen before all this shit came out. And it makes it seem worse than it is. And this is from reports from someone in a courtroom that saw the badge cam footage. So if Nick Rekieta is going to roll out some kind of bullshit excuse that this is all made up and some kind of like fake thing made up about him to besmirch him. And by the way, Nick, for someone who says the government and local government's against you and all corrupt, they sure did a good job protecting your privacy and security. I think allegedly they're deleting the footage or might delete the footage. And so the state that you claim is evil and corrupt and doing you wrong is covering the evidence of your actions of operating a literal trap house with children present. So you can't have it both ways there, Chief. In my humble opinion, uh, you know, again, these libertarians will say you have a right to do what you want inside your own house, whatever drugs or sick shit. But at the end of the day, they still didn't have the wherewithal to at least have this sordid orgy and drug event away from their house, away from children. So again, this is a guy who will at his camp, the sweepers of Nick Rekieta often point at Josh Moon, say he's a pedophile because he used to work at a website that had it, and but yet put their children in danger and have shit like dildos, sex toys, lube, and copious amounts of drugs everywhere. Uh, but anyways, there's going to be sweeping. There's going to be massive amounts of sweeping from Nick's camp on this. And there's going to be people who are going to the people he surrounds himself with, Mapton, Diddler Dax, and Vito. He's already around degenerate people who will sell their morality and like character and even just self-worth to defend their mensch, Nick Rekieta. So he's definitely got an army of people of Jannies that are going to sweep for him at the end of the day. But yeah, this was quite the read. I've never read shit this crazy, and this is real. Recanting all the horrendous shit, the trap house, and the situation those children are living and maybe still living in. And you know Nick Rekieta isn't cleaning up the house. He's too good for that. He's the silver spoon shithead that can expose his children to all this degeneracy and drug use because nothing applies to him. The rules don't apply to him. The rules are meant to apply to people like you and me for him to call out. And if you remember, in closing, Nick Rekieta is the guy who spent his entire online career making fun of people at their lowest situation in life when they're in court. Remember all the court cases, the Rittenhouse, the Johnny Depp hearing where he laughed and made fun of everyone else's stuff that was brought to light during court? Well, now it's his turn, and he doesn't like it. A guy who spent and made hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars doing the same thing, when people were naked and bare in court, when things were brought out in discovery that he laughed at and defamed, and then now he's in the same situation. Isn't that weird how that works? And again, this is only fitting because Nick Rekieta, again, is a guy who's defamed Christ, made fun of his divinity, and a guy who generally hates Christians, and he only used that Christian facade in his early career to grift off it. I don't think there's any way, the shit he said about just Christian faith and church and stuff, he's only used it to better himself, and that's what he's done with everything else in his life. And if I'll be damned that he won't use this instance to better himself more. Now he can play victim, saying now all these people came out, he sprayed bear and people made fun of him, and that evil Joshua Moon, those fucking Kiwi farmers, right? Well, isn't payback a bitch? And you should keep that in mind next time you defame Jesus Christ and mock Jesus and Christians. I mean, karma's a bitch. And that's that. That's my opinion. Hopefully you found this interesting, entertaining, and discovered this as I have. And wow, it's pretty fucked up. And there's additional stuff. Something, he had a stream where he was up at 2 a.m. and the kid came in and signed something. So one or some of the kids are probably living with the grandparents. Probably the eldest son, if I had to guess. Because if that rumor is true that he laid hands on his eldest son, the son's probably living with the grandparents. If not, maybe all the kids are. Who knows? Maybe all the kids are living with grandpa and grandma rackets while he continues to have weird orgy shit. Who knows? But it'll be developing, And I don't know if the footage is deleted yet. We'll have to see how the lawsuit goes with Joshua Moon, Arden, and Candy Ojai County. We'll have to see how that rolls out and plays. But yeah, hopefully you found this interesting, entertaining, and awful, disgusting way. Hopefully you enjoyed my opinion. See you next time. God bless. Happy, stay healthy, and of course, there's crap in the description down below. Anyways, see you next time. Have a good one. For God's sakes, don't do drugs. Drugs aren't cool. I'll say that. Only losers and fools do that, or people who are coping with like shit. Still doesn't justify it, but you get what I'm saying. Or at least say this: if you are gonna do drugs and have weird orgies, have it away from your fucking children in a hotel or an Airbnb. That's all we're asking. We're not coming out here saying you shouldn't do drugs or have orgies because you're a grown ass adult. But what we can say is you can at least have lines that you don't cross and have children near and present when you're doing fucked up shit. I thought that would have been common sense coming from Nick Rekieta, again, a guy who's like 180 IQ fucking lawyer who knows everything and smarter than everyone else. But